ask you, what do you make of what you've seen this weekend?
Well, I think we all know this started with truck drivers and people who are supporting truckers upset at the mandates. But I think what's happening is this is overall a big protest against the government's response to COVID. I think people have had enough, rightly or wrongly. Their patience has run thin. They're tired of broken promises. They're tired of the vaccine passport, and I think it's fair to say not only federal vaccine passports but provincial ones as well.
What do you make, though, of some of the things that we've seen there? Is there not also a backlash to what's happened up here in Ottawa? There's been reference to the defacing of the Terry Fox Memorial, the dancing on the tomb of the unknown soldier, the basically raiding of a homeless person's shelter for food. What do you make of those events?
Obviously, I mean, whether it's any protest that happens, we've seen protests over the years, even just in Manitoba over the summer, where the Queen Victoria statue was ripped down. Heads chopped off of statues. What happened to the Terry Fox statue? We all condemn that. Obviously, that is unacceptable. But I think what we're hearing, the people I'm talking to, the majority of them are patriotic, peace-loving, very passionate, good people, and they deserve. The Prime Minister needs to hear them. The Prime Minister needs to listen to them and give them some respect instead of just discounting their views as unacceptable. They deserve some respect.
Your leader, Aaron O'Toole, said it's time to turn the temperature down. Do you think this has turned the temperature down, or has it further polarized people? Because a lot of people here in Ottawa, for example, and some people across the country are not pleased by what they see in this demonstration.
Well, I'll tell you, when you tell a group of people that they are racist and misogynist because they disagree with you, which is what the Prime Minister's done, that raises the temperature. I really want to see the Prime Minister of this country start to bring the temperature down, show some respect to people that he might disagree with, but he needs to listen to them, and I believe that that's what's going to turn the temperature down. I've got to head into my meeting.
Thank you
for
very
chatting.
much.
All right.
Brought down. What do you think the response in the House of Commons will be today?
Look, I think at the end of the day, Canadians are tired. We're frustrated. It's been challenging 2 years. I understand that. I have the opportunity in the House today to give a reply to the speech from the throne, and I intend to use that opportunity to address what we're seeing today. But the suggestion that we should just drop any health-related protocol is completely ignorant to what we're seeing in hospital rooms across the country. With the amount of ICU cases that are tied to people that are unvaccinated, we need to continue to make sure that those protocols are in place until we're able to get through the Omicron wave and be able to move forward.
If you had to give a comment to how you feel, what do you think the intent of this protest is? I mean, we've seen a lot of things that maybe have disturbed a lot of people, and there are certainly people that are staying here today. So what's your sort of takeaway from what these protesters are asking for?
I think it's important to remember that the impetus for supposedly why this protest was taking place was around vaccine mandates at the border, which is actually being imposed by the United States. Yes, our government is reciprocating for American truck drivers. If you look at the...
put theirs in place first, just to be fair.
To be fair, but I think when you look at the flags, whether it be the swastika flags we've seen this weekend, whether or not you see the Confederate flags, Trump flags, this is bigger than just around vaccine mandates. There's a negative underbelly that I've seen. Is there perhaps well-intended individuals as part of that crowd? I would like to hope so, but I can say that the trucking associations that are supposedly speaking for truckers are not sanctioning this type of behavior. And I think at the end of the day, we have to be mindful that I think there is some sinister view of those that are amongst this protest, notwithstanding there might be individuals that are well-intended.
What do you make of the fact that there's a...
Muskoka came up just a few moments ago and really sort of blamed a lot of this anger and frustration on the division that the Liberal campaign ran on in the last election, which was about dividing people over vaccine mandates. That was a wedge issue, that was something decided on by the government. What's your response to that?
I mean, my response to that would be look at the governments across the country, provincial and territorial, that are also imposing vaccine requirements, that are putting vaccination passports in place. It's all under the guise of trying to protect the collective well-being of those who have made their own individual choice to be vaccinated, right? There are individuals in this country that have chosen not to vaccinate. There are consequences to those choices, which means some restricted freedoms to protect the well-being of others that have made their own individual choice to follow science, to follow public health advice, and to be able to move move forward so we can get on the other side of this pandemic.
What do you make of the Angus Reid poll? Much is being said in conservative circles about the Angus Reid poll. For the first time, a majority of Canadians, according to Angus Reid, is saying they feel that measures should be lifted quickly.
It goes back to the point I've made earlier that I think Canadians are growing tired and frustrated. It's been close to 2 years. I want to get back to a new normal as well, so I share that frustration, but the reality is we have to be mindful of not overwhelming the healthcare system. Go look at the ICU units and the amount of unvaccinated that represent, in some cases, 40-50% of those cases, and only around 10% of the population. So the measures that are in place now have to stay, but we're trying to get to a point that we can move forward. And I think that it's incumbent on all governments to demonstrate that the measures that we're taking are getting us there.
The Prime Minister is speaking to Canadians this morning. What's your advice to him? Because the Conservatives are saying that he's using this as a wedge issue. Faced with this protest, faced with the kind of divisions that it has revealed, what's your advice to the Prime Minister and the kind of tone he should have? He's being criticized for calling these people marginalized.
Look, I think all elected officials, not just the Prime Minister, we all have to be mindful of trying to balance the fact that there's a lot of emotion out there right now, and I suspect that the Prime Minister will strike that tone, and I fully support him. I need to run to committee, guys. Thanks. Take care.
And it feels like there's no end in sight. I think that frustration the Canadian feels it's real. I feel it too. I'm frustrated as much as anybody else, and I think that to ignore that element of this, to ignore the real frustration that Canadians feel, because there's an awful lot more Canadians that aren't here that are frustrated too. I think that the Prime Minister does so at his peril. I think that we need to. And I say his peril electorally, nothing in no other way.
Now,
your
leader, Aaron O'Toole, said it's time to turn the temperature down. Do you think this demonstration has turned the temperature down, or it's gotten some backs up because there's some people who don't like what they're seeing?
Yeah, no, I think the entire last few days have just gotten more people's backs up. Actually, I think that what's missing, and frankly, what I think has been missing in our political discourse for decades really is more conversation and less partisanship and vilifying our opponents for political purposes. When this started, we were all in this together. That was the language. And then when the Prime Minister saw an opportunity electorally during the election to sow more division, the us versus them, the people who I don't agree with. I think vaccines work, but there are people who are opposed to them. And I said all along during the election campaign, if I got to wear my mask a little bit longer so that we can stick together as Canadians and get through this, then I'm prepared to do that.
But what about the major message here, though, is anti-vax? What about that as a liability for your party? I mean, most of the people we talk to here are just basically anti-vaccine, anti-vaccine mandate, and even anti-mask.
Well, I think that our party's been clear all along that we're not in favor of vaccine mandates. We encourage everyone to get vaccinated. I've been, as I said many times, I'm double vaccinated. I believe in vaccines. I actually trust my doctor, not just when it comes to regular everyday health issues, but also on this one, and I think everyone else should too. But I think we've been very clear all along, and I have certainly too, that the government can't force people to have an injection. And so, people, I think that our messaging early on about being all in this together and being supportive of one another and encouraging everybody was the right approach. But all that changed in the election when all of a sudden it was us versus them for electoral purposes. It was a disgusting display by the Prime Minister, and we're seeing the results of that. And it's been going on for generations, but this is just the most recent example of it. He was more interested in winning a few more seats than he was in bringing the country together.
Au sujet des propos de M. Trudeau tout à l'heure, j'imagine que vous les avez entendus. Vous en avez pensé quoi de ces propos par rapport aux camionneurs?
Bien honnêtement, j'ai sourcillé un petit peu en entendant M. Trudeau dire que ces gens-là rouspétaient, les gens qui clairement veulent se faire entendre, c'est pour ça qu'ils sont dans la rue devant le Parlement, qui ont des revendications de toutes sortes, des revendications pour le gouvernement Trudeau, mais aussi pour le gouvernement Legault. Alors, je pense pas que si on veut désamorcer la situation, c'est la bonne chose à leur répondre. Je pense qu'on doit entamer un dialogue et surtout, en tant qu'élu, autant du côté du gouvernement que de l'opposition, on a une certaine responsabilité à peut-être appeler à l'unité, appeler à la solidarité, mais aussi rappeler pourquoi les mesures sanitaires qui sont en place en ce moment, elles ont lieu d'être, elles sont encore légitimes pour pouvoir se sortir de la pandémie. Alors peut-être que c'est un message comme celui-là que M. Trudeau aurait dû passer plutôt que de dire que les manifestants rouspètent et qu'on ne cédera pas à l'intimidation ou à la pression.
Vous trouvez qu'il met de l'huile sur le feu?
Sans peut-être mettre de l'huile sur le feu, parce que pour avoir passé devant le Parlement, moi-même, j'ai trouvé que les gens manifestaient de façon assez pacifique, mais quand même, je pense pas que c'est ce qui va faire en sorte que les manifestants vont décider de quitter la rue. Je pense que ça leur donne une bonne raison de rester ici tant et aussi longtemps que M. Trudeau leur apportera pas un petit peu plus d'attention, il leur donnera pas une réponse un petit peu plus claire.
Est-ce qu'il doit faire des compromis, M. Trudeau?
Bien, c'est difficile parce que les revendications, elles sont de toutes sortes. Ça a commencé, bien sûr, avec la vaccination obligatoire pour les camionneurs. On sait que si M. Trudeau recule par rapport à ça, ça ne va pas changer grand-chose parce que la mesure est en vigueur du côté des États-Unis aussi. Donc, il faudrait voir quelles sont les revendications principales. C'est une situation assez particulière, là, un mouvement qui, comme je le disais, qui a pris de l'ampleur et les revendications sont tellement nombreuses qu'on ne sait pas trop qu'est-ce qu'ils veulent au final ou plusieurs personnes veulent des choses différentes. Alors, je pense pas qu'on doit reculer par rapport à cette réglementation-là en particulier, mais quand même d'entamer un dialogue peut-être avec les manifestants, ça serait une meilleure chose à faire.
Peut-être des accommodements. Certains disent les accommoder d'une autre façon, les considérer comme travailleurs essentiels, un peu comme avant, il y a quelques semaines. Est-ce que ça, ce serait peut-être une avenue de désamorcer un peu la...
Bien, on voit souvent le gouvernement Legault presque quotidiennement faire des mises à jour, expliquer pourquoi les mesures sont encore en vigueur, qu'est-ce qui va changer dans les prochains temps, qu'est-ce qu'on va assouplir. On a peut-être un peu moins vu M. Trudeau faire ça. Alors, pour les mesures qui touchent le fédéral, peut-être que ce serait une bonne chose de dire, bien, voilà ce qui est en place et pourquoi. Ça va être comme ça pour tant de prochaines semaines. C'est sûr que la situation, elle est difficile à contrôler. On ne sait pas ce qui peut arriver. Omicron nous a frappés. On ne s'y attendait pas du tout. Peut-être que qu'il va y avoir un autre variant qui va arriver. On va devoir se préparer à ça, mais d'expliquer encore une fois pourquoi les mesures sanitaires sont en place et pourquoi elles sont nécessaires, je pense que c'est le travail qu'on doit faire.
Merci beaucoup.